Welcome back, guys. So, almost last section of this course, and it's going to be about mixing. So, mixing is something I told you before we were doing the actual video on mixing. It's a process that happens over the whole length of the project. Mixing is also emotions. Mixing is the way you produce music. Like if you have all your elements playing in the same range, it's really hard to mix that stuff. But if you have chords in this range, your melody in this range, your kick and bass in this, and in your really high frequencies, your hi-hats and stuff, it's going to be way easier. So I'm telling you this because mixing is a dynamic process. You build your track, you adjust the levels to make it feel right to you, and that's already mixing. Then you mix that stuff, you listen to it, you go to the mastering and realize, oh, I need to do some stuff in the mixing stage again. So make sure you follow this, but make sure to also experiment with your own stuff. The general rule, if you want to call it like that, I like to name all my tracks properly, so I know what I'm doing. I've done this over the course, but now it's time to get rid of all the tracks you don't use, get rid of all those weird namings like 7 white noise, we can just call it noise, and because it's in the drum bus, I know what I'm talking about. If you have things like this, like the piano source we just created, and that is still here but not playing, but you might think, well, it's valuable, you can just hit Command, Shift, and S, and create a new, let's call it V2 for version number 2. So you have the one where the piano source is in, and we have the 2 where we're just going to delete it. So if you want to go back, you can always just go back to your old synth bus, and there you have the piano source. So then just get rid of all the tracks that are not in use, like this one. Get rid of the vocal bus because we don't have vocals. Get rid of those sources here. Get rid of this MIDI clip here. Call this vinyl. So the FX bus looks good. This is the rev woohoo, and that's already it. Make sure to name things properly. It's also easier for you if you have a clean setting, a clean session, and especially you think you remember it, but especially if you go back like 4 weeks ago, you open a project, you have no clue what element is what. So here we are. It already is pretty cool what the melodic sounds like, I guess. But the drums sound a little bit too boring to be lo-fi house, in my opinion. So why not, especially with this thing here, why not add like a redux to it to just add a little bit more. And get rid of the high frequencies here. You know what? Let's separate the kick. You can, if you have a drum rack like this, just create a new MIDI track, click on the kick, or whatever element you want to export from the drum rack, and just drag and drop it onto the new MIDI clip. It just copies the kick, MIDI pattern, and creates a new drum rack with the kick only, and you have like separate stuff for the top loop. So you can call this top loop 1, this will be top loop 2. Now we can get rid of all those. So where is our Q filter on? Because this automation didn't work apparently. Oh no, we're not talking about this, we're talking about this. Okay, things like that happen, but that is nothing we need to worry about too much. So let's just let's focus on the drums. What we can do is we can use the sidechain compression on the top loop. Not too much, but just to give the kick a little bit more room. Then you can get rid of the really lows because you can't hear them anyway, and kind of rebalance the whole mix, because I feel like the kick has really loud sub but less top. Cool. So what I like to do then is have my hi-hats slightly to the left. Then right to the right. The rim shot is doing its own thing with the random pan. The snare drum could be a little bit to the right as well. Let's look at the other things. That's looking good. Looking good as well. I created this thing called the Drum Fattener, which is like a series of plugins I'm using all the time. And it makes everything super gritty, which I love. So what you can do is you can either download the Drum Fattener with this course. It's free for you. And it's pretty handsome. It's pretty useful, I mean. But you can also do this by creating your own drum rack. By using a mix of distortion, a little bit of reverb, and a lot of compression. And what you want to do, this is essential for the sound, and especially I like to use that for drums. I'm going to show you this extra because it's really important. You can build your own little drum fattener here, but make sure to add this glue compressor. Not only does it sound cool as a compression, but I used it because of this soft clipping button here. So soft clipping is essentially, let me show you this. I'm having a analyzing tool. You don't need that, but I like to have this, and let me show you what a soft clipper does. So we have the kick here. Put it on transient mode. You can see this. That's normal kick, right? If we add the soft clipper here, and I built this little rack for it, soft clipper. If you increase the gain and reduce the output gain, you can easily see, you know, boosting by 30 dB, it's lowering by 30 dB. So it's essentially the same gain if you turn it up and down, but you see what soft clipping does. And soft clipping just, you know, if you increase the gain, it's just clips, it's just distorted, but soft clipping adds a little curve to it and then just cuts it off at the loudest point. So let's look at this. That's the kick. And now let's see if I increase it. You see? It's getting rounded off. It's almost like a square. And it's getting extreme if you increase it. But what you can achieve with this is a really loud mix, because your transient will still sound crispy, it will still sound nice, but it's not that loud. It's cut off already. So if you're mixing to a louder point, you don't want your transients to peek through everything, and your compressors will work really hard on that. But you can just add a soft clipper that is essentially part of this chain. Like at the end of it, here we have the glue compressor with the soft clipping button turned on, and the makeup just to increase everything. And then we have like a soft clip kick. You can see this here. So Let's add an auto filter to it and filter the cake a little. Another cool thing I want to give you away is the mix checker. Let's get rid of the analyzer here first. So the mix checker is something you can really easily build. It's essentially 3 knobs. It's a mono button, which controls the utility tool with the mono button turned on. Then we have the essential EQ, which is this equalizer here, and it cuts away all the low frequencies below 200 Hertz and all the high frequencies above 8000 Hertz. And this is essentially the range your ear kind of hears the most sensitive, and is like it's tuned to really identify things. So if you can hear all those elements in this area, and if it sounds good and well balanced, then you have a really good starting point for your mixing. So this is something I like to use on my master bus. And then we have the sides only, which is essentially you have stereo, left, right, and mid side mode, and if it essentially just cuts away like everything in the middle and just lets you hear the sides, so you can see what your stereo thing is doing. So what I like to do for mixing and balancing is just turn on mono and the essential EQ, and then turn down your monitoring volume really quiet. Really quiet. Okay. For me, it's really quiet. So you make sure to do that as well. So you want to go to your loudest part. And this is probably the loudest part because all those elements and the top melody is playing. And now listen to how it sounds to you if you can determine every element. So I feel like those two elements are kind of fighting each other. So what we can do is just add a compressor to this and let it be triggered by the piano melody. But just slightly, long attack, auto release, not too much ratio, and put on the look ahead. Make it really easy for the compressor. You don't want to duck it really heavily like you did with the kick, but you can even use some OTT on this one as well. You can hear the bass here. You can hear the vocal bed. How about the drums? Crash should be louder. We can even decrease the amount of the mid frequencies and the noise. Okay, so this is how it sounds now with all those mix checking things. So you hear all those elements you need to hear. The noise down left is too loud here, so let's just turn this one down. Way better. Kick is probably a little bit too loud. Rim shot is too loud. Cool. What I like to do then is, you know, you can just, like I told you before, just add the kick sidechain compression to the reverb and delay. So you have everything ducked to the kick, like this is your main groove element, and this. And you know, you've been listening to this as long as me. Your ears are probably tuned to the sound of it now, so you expect that it sounds like this. But let me turn off this thing. Wait for it. Cool. So we have really cool distorted drums. Really lo-fi-ish. So just to make sure you get this right, I have some distortion here, some erosion tool just to add a little bit more high frequencies, a short reverb, 300 milliseconds, and just mix a pinch to it, like 4.5%. Some OTT compression because OTT is love. Then we have some soft clipping, and that's it. We can even add the sidechain compression to the FX bus as well. Another cool thing that you can do, I'm just thinking about what else I can tell you about mixing, because it's really a dynamic process. Sometimes it really helps if you just export all those stems you want to have, and you can even reduce the number of stems, like export your kick as one track and maybe your clap as the other track, and then the rest of your drums as the third track, your bass extra and your other melodics extra and your effects extra, and try to think of yourself of changing your roles from being the artist, being the producer, to being the mixing engineer. And this helps you create, like, you create a new template, you create a new Ableton session or Pro Tools if you want to use that, or any other DAW, and then just try to think, okay, I'm the mixing engineer, I got this project, I can't change anything beside the audio here, they don't hire me to add things, they hired me to make it sound good, and then think about it. Okay, let's listen to the sides. So we have a lot of stuff. So the piano is really on the side, but we can still hear it in mono. Let's listen to it. So maybe we can add like this EQ here, go on mid-side mode, get rid of the low mid frequencies and the side, so like this. So we have the upper frequencies in the side and the lower frequencies in the middle, so it's kind of translates better. Mono. Yeah. Perfect. Piano sounds a little too hard. Also, the kick has some frequencies I don't like. If you hear frequencies you don't like and you don't know which it is, you can just add a new band and add this little headphone button here and hold down. I think it's this frequency. And also this bump here. You can even check if your bass is sounding good by just having a utility tool and clicking this little headphones button here. Sounds good to me. Okay, so that's it for mixing. I mean, every project is different. Keep that in mind. Try to have mixing in mind when you're producing music. Don't let that limit you, but have that in mind. Maybe try to, instead of having your lead sound in the same area as your chords, have it in a higher or lower area, whatever you feel like. Make sure that each element has its own kind of space and kind of reason to be there. If you have like 10 hi-hats all doing the same stuff, you probably only need one. It's always better to have less elements and have those elements a little bit bigger than having too many, you know, having no reason at all to be there. So that's it for mixing. I hope you learned something. I know it's quite difficult to follow instead of having like a real normal section, because, you know, mixing and mastering are just and production are just kind of weave together. But let's look at mastering in the last part of this video series. So see you there.